Hello everyone, welcome to yet another tutorial. Today we are going to look at how to create a project like this. This is created using 3ds Max and After Effects. So I have some title animation, then a robot comes down, there is a shadow, there's a live action footage with a live camera, and we're going to track the camera in After Effects, take that uh, track camera into 3ds Max, animate the robot, learn how to create shadows, um, render the animation, bring it in After Effects, add some color correction, add sound effects, and create the final project. All right, so let us get started. The first thing you have to do is either take a footage or find a footage. So what I did was on YouTube search for video for tracking. All right, so if you hit enter, I found this channel by Mr. Kareem, and he has some interesting footage that you can use. And I have used this one, camera tracking footage, which is 1 minute and 1 second long. Okay, so you can download that footage and we are going to use that footage. If you want some other footage, you can work with that, but it's better to learn how to do things if you want to do exactly what I'm doing. All right, so we are in After Effects. I'll go to File, New Project. Okay, we will bring in the file, and you can see that I have a camera footage MOV and I also have a MP4. If I right click and go to Properties, and in Details, you see it is 24 frames per second, and the converted file is 29.97 frames per second. Okay, so this is important. If you're working at a specific frame rate, you have to use the same frame rate throughout. So I'm going to use this footage, which is 24 frames per second, and drag it onto the timeline. And this is quite long, so I'm going to make it around 5 seconds long. Okay, hit N key to trim the composition there, and then trim comp to work area. So I get a 5-second long footage which we are going to track. All right, so simply you right click and go to not track motion, but we need to track camera. So go to window, make sure your tracker is on, and then click double click on it. I'll go to workspace, all panels, window, workspace, animation. Back, so go to window, tracker, and then click on track camera. Now it's going to analyze the footage. If you see here, it says initializing. So once the first step is done, it will proceed to the second step. Now it is processing the footage, and it might take a long time if you have a longer footage. So that's why I trimmed it to 5 seconds to speed up the process. And you can see that it has tracked the camera, and you can see there are a bunch of points here now. When you have tracked the camera, if you don't see the points, you'll have to select the camera tracker in effects and controls, and as you drag, you can see that certain points are disappear and new points appear. For example, if you look at this blue point, it's not there in the beginning, but it appears later. So all these red points are good, they stay there for throughout, so we should focus on the red points. All right, So now what I'm going to do is select this one point, shift select this red point and select 4. I like to select 4. Okay, and then we'll right click and say set ground plane and origin. Okay, then right click and then create 4 nulls and camera. Okay, so now our camera and the nulls are created, so you can see those nulls, and now if you drag your footage, those nulls stay there. Okay, so this camera and the nulls will be transferred to 3ds Max. So what we need to go to is we need to go to uh, file, scripts, and we have to run this script, ae3d export.jsx. Now you can search for it. I search for it here, ae3d export, and then you get this link. All right, you can download that file. Okay, this is the file ae3d export.jsx. I'm going to cut it or copy it, and then you go to C drive, program files, Adobe After Effects, support files, and scripts, and then you need to paste it there. All right, then save your project, close After Effects, open it again, and then you will find that file. So you just have to run that A3D export script. I'm working with 3ds Max, so select 3ds Max. This file will be, this button doesn't work for some reason, so you want to save this file as, give it some name. So I'll say 4.null export, whatever the name you want, or maybe robot export. All right, go to options. This is important. Make sure that the scale is set to 1:1. Okay, and then click on export. Okay, once you export that file, it will be saved on desktop as robot export. Okay, so this is the file. Then you go to After Effects. I will reset everything. Sorry, we go to 3ds Max. Okay, and then go to script, run script, and select the robot export file and open it. Okay, so now what you're going to see is our 4 null points and the camera, and this is the left view. So the camera is pointing downwards. We want the camera to be parallel to the ground, not perpendicular to it. So what I'll do is I'll select all these, and for some reason when this script is when you run this script, if you are somewhere outside and do any changes, a keyframe is created. So make sure that you are on 0 all the time when you're doing all this work. Okay, so you can drag to see how the camera is moving. Okay, you can also go to cameras, camera, and you can see that the grid is standing up. We want the grid to be as a ground. So I'll select all these elements, add frame number 0, mind it, go to group and group it. Okay, doesn't matter the name of the group. Turn on object snap and turn it 90 degrees. Okay, and now these points should be on the ground, so we need to move them, and then the null object center is in the middle, so eyeball the center of the null object. Okay, so that's how the points will be tracked. Now we need to see the footage in the background, so you can go to configure viewport, use file, animate background, select the file, and then you select the file where you have saved it. I'm going to go to the place where my file is. Okay, I will go and turn the show save frame on, and now you can see that it takes a little bit of time, but I'm focusing on this one where the red rock is there, and whenever you move the camera, the red rock is in the middle. All right, so that means our footage is properly tracked. To test this, we will create a teapot. So just create a teapot in the middle somewhere. All right, and then now if I render this, okay, you don't see the background. So what you need to do is go to environment, hit the 8th key, and then select the file again, this one. Okay, now it's not looking right, so you have to hit the M key for materials, drag this file here as an instance is good, double click on it and change this to screen. Okay, and now when you render it, you're going to get your teapot onto the ground. Okay, so that's your teapot. All right, what we will do is we will lock this camera view, so every time it renders that. Now we need shadows, so what we do is we create a plane. Okay, and then we need a light, so I'll go to standard lights and simply create an omni. So you can see that if you see this image, there's some light falling here, and if you look at the background, the shadows are in After Effects, the shadow is falling that direction. Okay, so you can see that these are the shadows of these elements falling this side. So you have to understand where the light is coming from. So we have the camera, and then the light is somewhere here. Okay, and then up in the sky. You can work with the light later on, turn the shadows on. Okay, and then this one has to have a material so that it only accepts shadows and does not show up in the renderer. So if you go to material editor, we'll drag a matte shadow material and assign that material to the object. Okay, so when you render it, you get the shadow, but you don't get the material. So now the shadow is on the ground. What you can play with the light a bit, maybe you can add some diffuse light so the other side is not so dark, and this will take some practice and working around. So this is not going to cast any shadow, that fill light, and then I will have an intensity of say 0.5 for this, and then we will go to the shadow parameters. Maybe the density can be low, and shadow map parameters, this can be 1024 to have sharper shadows. Bias, I'll make it 0.1. All right, so these are the few settings that can really quickly make, so you have a little lighter shadow like the scene. Okay, and then the teapot is properly lit. We'll just render this out. So I'll say active time segment, we'll make this 720 by 405. Okay, so it's the HDTV, same resolution as the footage and then go to files, desktop, then say pot, save it as a movie file, save it. I'm using H.264 compressor for the movie file. Make sure that it is set to the camera. Okay, here camera is selected, it is locked, and now we'll hit the render button and we should get our movie. So it will take about 2.5 minutes. I had created this movie already. I did not add the other light and the fill light when I did this. So if you look at this, okay, so the teapot is not moving. So if the teapot is moving from the ground, then you have not done a good job rotating and placing the null objects at the ground. Okay, but if you have done everything right, then it should look right. It's going to take another 2 minutes to finish, so I will show you what the results are, and then in the next class we will look at how to create the robot and then put the robot in the scene and create the robot animation. What you can do is to continue with what I did for the footage was I went to effect, color correction, and what did I add? Color balance, no, animation effect, color correction, hue saturation, and I increase the saturation quite a bit. Okay, and then I go into effect, color correction, exposure, and then I kill the exposure a little bit, okay, to create that dark look. Then I had worked with the offset also a little bit, 0.06. Okay, so that's how I made the scene more dark. So our movie is rendered. Let us look at what we got. Teapot. Okay, so it has shadows and it is in place. Okay. So thank you very much for watching, and in the next class we'll work with the robot.